inches of rain, and then some heavier pockets that could be 15+ inches on top of the storm surge that comes in. So again, the main thing, folks, when it starts to come in, don't get out on the roads. Don't get in that water, because the storm surge alone is enough to trap your car, let alone any flash flooding that could incur as well at the same time.
Yeah, so many things to think about depending on where you want to get to. Allison, appreciate it.
We've seen overnight, because a lot of people went to sleep and it was a category 5 and it was moving toward the West Coast. We've seen some changes overnight. Chad, get us all up to date.
Victor,
bar because of the storm, but you didn't.
Got everything out of the yard, and my house is now loaded with everything from outside. Got everything out of the yard, and my house is now loaded with everything from outside. So I thought maybe it would be best to find a room, and here I am at the Marriott beachside.
So how high are you off the ground? Are you is it multi-stories?
Well, actually, I have a ringside seat. I am on the 3rd floor with a spiral staircase going up to the rooftop if I was that brave.
Well, that's probably good to just have that as an option. And that's great that you're on the 3rd floor, because obviously, you know, any kind of storm surge that hopefully would put you out of the wave. And of course, with winds and waves on top of that, there's no telling what things are going to be like. I assume, I mean, you've ridden out storms before, have you?
Yes, I have a couple, but nothing like this. And this now is rated, I think, only a Category 3, but that could change. And the buildings here are rated Category 5. So we have other people staying here from Key West, including some of the military, some of the police, some officials, and other people from the town that chose to not leave. So it was a very wise choice to be here. And the room has an ocean view, so, I mean, I can see everything. Sailboats out, anchored in the harbor.
And I assume you have some food, you have some supplies to last for a couple of days. Any regret about not leaving the Keys?
No, actually, it's kind of like an exciting vacation. Nonetheless. And I did bring some food with me and some wine. So I'm all set. And I also brought the cat. The cat did not want to stay home.
I can imagine. Well, I'm glad you have company, and we'll check in with you when this thing is done. We wish you the best, and obviously everybody in the Keys. I want to check in with Tom Sater, who's following the track of this storm.
You guys,
Tom, I mean, you hear folks in the Florida Keys who've decided not to evacuate despite the constant warnings, despite the constant pressure from authorities. Just talk about where this storm is now, what the Keys should be seeing, and when.
Well, Anderson, we now have a tornado warning for Key West. This is one of few that we've had today. There will be many. In fact, it's not unusual to have 50, 60, 70, 75, 80 tornado warnings. I know Harvey had over 200. But again, tornadoes are going to be an issue. And I know for many, when they're looking at, of course, Irma making its way toward southwestern Florida, Miami, Hollywood, Boca, Delray Beach may think, okay, we're not going to see the strongest winds, but you're in an area where you could have a higher concentration of tornadoes. Now, again, as we continue to watch this, Anderson, make its way off the coast, I'm going to show you a radar in a minute. Very interesting now to continue to watch the eye. We're already seeing on the infrared satellite imagery more purple. That's the higher cloud tops, colder cloud tops. So it's starting to generate some energy. But I think we may be going through one of those eye wall replacement cycles. Morton went almost the entire state of Florida under a hurricane warning. Watches to the north will change in due time as the storm progresses northward. We've talked tirelessly about the storm surge, of course, getting quite great. Now, you have to understand where you see the area of purple of 10 to 15 feet. Initially, that's wetlands. That's the Everglades. There's barely any roads there until you get up to around Alligator Alley. But it does extend all the way through the Carolinas, and that will continue to be the case. Now, here's the eye. We've got a secondary banding in yellow that is starting to occur. We typically see that when that outer band starts to form, and then it shrinks in toward the center, and it gains strength. It's a little close to the shoreline right now, but I think that's going to happen. Now, consider this. We've talked tirelessly about as well. We've got 90 miles here from Cuba to the coast of Florida to develop. This is going to be more than 90 miles. You have to consider the curvature and its western track and then to the north. So instead of 90 miles of extremely warm water, we've got 120, 125 miles. So that will intensify over time with this water temperatures being at 85 or 90. Tornado watch now for the extreme southern half of Florida. We're going to talk more in depth about that as time progresses and what to expect past Florida. There are millions of people up in Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee that have got an interesting forecast, too, and we'll share that with them, Anderson, in just a little bit.
Yeah, and with all that warm water, of course, the strength of the storm probably increasing. Tom Sater, thanks. We'll continue to check in with you. I want to go to break. As we go to break, though, I want you to look at some time-lapse images that our Patrick Ottman has been taking in Cuba of what he has seen of this storm. Gives you a sense of what to expect here in Florida in the coming hours.
That's right. So one of the things that has just changed at the top of the hour.
It's coming in strong. Yeah, let me just get my jacket on. Woo! It is really strong here. I think it's just the beginning of this very powerful storm, Category 5, coming to this section of Cuba. Just now we're kind of feeling the wind pick up again. Where we are, the power was knocked out some 3 or 4 hours ago. I don't think we'll get it back. All day long, we were watching the weather get worse and worse and worse. And this afternoon, a couple really strong bands came through out of nowhere and really almost knocked us off our feet. The Cuban coastline has now come to us. The house and the town where we've been reporting from is now underwater, probably a good 3 to 4 feet of water. Irma is heading towards Florida, but she is not done with Cuba just yet. We continue to feel strong gusts, see roofs being torn off. There are trees that have been down. The area that I am in, this was not underwater yesterday. It very much so is today. Many of the people live here in small one-story houses, which are now just underwater. No! the storm is leaving, but it's not gone.
Or is the forward movement, the direction in which the storm is moving. Right now, we're starting to see a change from due west to west-northwest. That may seem very subtle, but that's what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for that shift in which it is going to start to make that northward trek towards the state of Florida. And we're starting to at least get a little bit of a glimpse of that. Again, it's not a sharp turn, at least as of this point, but we're starting to see that change over. Now, one of the main concerns with this storm is still going to be incredibly strong winds. At landfall point, for a lot of these areas, these are your maximum wind gusts you're going to be dealing with. 138 miles per hour in Key West, 136 in Fort Myers, even Tampa. Going to be looking at 116 miles per hour at its strongest point for the storm. The track still does take it along the west coast, but it's likely going to make its first landfall, if you will, in the U.S. over the Florida Keys. Exactly where, that is still yet to be determined. We have to wait to find out how quickly the storm makes that sharp turn to the north to really be able to tell exactly where the storm is going to go. It's then likely to go along places like